I'm so excited for you to hear this next episode of Another Mother. It is with Katharine Hill, and we are talking all about confident parenting in a digital age. She's written a book called Left to Their Own Devices, so we chat about all the practical ways that you can manage smartphones and the online world with your children, whatever age they may be. So check out this episode full of practical advice that you definitely want to hear. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Another Mother. This is a faith and parenting podcast by My Spring Harvest with me, Emma Francis. I am a mum of two little ones. I've got Ezra, who is now 5, and Hallie, who is 2. And this is our first episode back for season 3. So this is very exciting. I have absolutely missed doing this. I've missed having all of these conversations. So I'm excited to be back and have more conversations with parents and people in general, to just learn from them, to hear about their experiences, to share in their joy. So I hope that wherever you are listening today, that this just brings you a bit of strength for your day, a bit of joy to your day. And yeah, enjoy the conversation, because today I am joined by Katharine Hill. Welcome, Katharine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to this.
It is so good to have you. So you are here at Spring Harvest this week, doing quite a lot of things. You're very busy, I think, aren't you? What are the main things you're doing this week?
Well, the main things are 3 seminars that are in the parenting stream. And so we've literally just done one on social media, smartphones, self-esteem. So the whole issue of parenting in a digital age, which is one of the subjects that I love speaking on, because I think there's so much fear out there, and there is so much that we can do as parents. So that's the first one. Second one, we're going to talk about raising faith in the home and just the ways that we can encourage faith in little ones, teenagers, just in the everyday things of family life. And then the third one is a marriage seminar. And then as well as that, things like meeting up with you and radio interview. And what I absolutely love is, because at Care for the Family, which is the charity I work for, we have been coming here for many years, and so just every day bumping into people that have been to a seminar in the past, and they tell you a story about how they've been encouraged, how things have changed. So yeah,
it's nice to come back year after year and see. So for those that don't know, Katharine is the UK director of Care for the Family. So it's a charity that is supporting families with kind of guidance, and it's like very like biblical faith-based wisdom, isn't it, that you guys share?
We absolutely do. So we're a Christian charity, and it was formed in 1988. Rob Parsons is the founder, and he noticed then that there were lots of organizations that were helping families in difficulty, but there weren't so many that were there almost like at the top of the cliff. We talk about being the fence at the top of the cliff, as well as the ambulance at the bottom. And so we have, kingdom principled resources, courses, so much that we do in the areas of parenting, couple relationships, marriage, and then bereavement as well. And we've got some specific stuff for the church. So if you look on our website, there's some things about raising faith and just managing faith in a more overt way, but then a lot of stuff that has kingdom principles, but we know can be used in the community. So in schools, in prisons, in community settings. So that's our heart.
Wow. It's so good, because you have devoted like so much of your life to this kind of work, because even before Care for the Family, you were a family lawyer, weren't you? So what is it that's made you so passionate about families generally?
I think that's, so such a good question, Emma. I think it was that time as a family lawyer. So I think I saw then, day in, day out, really heartbreaking situations of where stuff has just not worked out for people. And just wanting, A, to be there for them, but then B, I was thinking, well, is there something that we could do sort of upstream to help people get good habits in the first place? And so I think that was where I got a real heart for families. And at Care Family, we want to be there for anyone and everyone, whatever family situation.
Yeah, it's funny because growing up in our house, my mum and dad would listen to Premier Radio every single morning. And I remember they would listen to Dr. Dobson. Do you know Dr. Dobson?
I know of, yes. He was Focus on the
Family. That's the one. Okay, yeah, because we used to listen to that every morning because my parents were like really new to faith, and they just had no idea about like how you raise children with kind of like faith-based principles. And then when I was speaking to my mum, I was saying that I was going to speak to you. And she was telling me a story that she heard Dr. Dobson say. And she didn't know what we were going to be talking about. And she said the one thing that she's always remembered is what he would talk about the internet. And it was about, like, I don't know, protecting your children from the online world. And I'm thinking, like, I was born in 1992. So this was like quite a while ago that they were kind of listening to this advice. But I thought it was so interesting that that was still like such a huge topic of conversation then, but still even now, like internet use, the digital age is so important for parents and things that like we really want to learn more about, because it does still feel like this dark, hazy world, but actually it's not as scary as it seems, is it?
No, absolutely. Well, that is amazing that he was saying that back then, because that was before the smartphone.
Yes.
So I think that everything changed in 2007 when the smartphone was introduced. So it was still the first, I've written a book called Left to Their Own Devices, and the first edition basically said, put the computer in the main family room. And that actually was good advice. But with the smartphone, everything's changed, because now with a phone in our pocket, you know, our children can be in contact with anyone, and there's so much good but some huge dangers. So I think we want to come alongside parents and encourage them to help them navigate the digital world with wisdom, you know, biblical wisdom, but not just banning smartphones, but actually making the most of them, but also putting those good boundaries in place. So I think Dr. Dobson was ahead of his time.
I know. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like my parents were really on it. I do remember. Do you know MSN Messenger? Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
I used to like chat to all of my friends.
Yeah, my daughter did. Yeah,
I know. And then I obviously wasn't very savvy, and I didn't realize that all the conversations get saved to the computer. And so, like, obviously it's like a family computer, and I didn't realize that, like, my parents would occasionally check the conversations, which at the time I was like, how dare you check my conversations? But looking back now, I'm like, I would 100% do the same. But there was a time when I was like, I was arranging to meet a boy from school, very naughty. And I told my parents that I was going to be seeing my friend Becky, like my best friend. And I wrote in the message to this boy, I'll just tell them that I'm at Becky's house. And then I remember my dad came to my room one night and he was like, is there anything you want to talk to me and your mum about? And I was like, no, nothing. And then he had printed the conversation and he was like, well, you're arranging to meet this boy at an estate and this is not the right thing to do.
This is not okay. Well, I had a similar thing as a parent in that I didn't print it out, but I remember one of our children had left it on and it was on the screen and seeing some stuff. And, you know, I probably wish I hadn't seen it, because then I had to do something. One of those occasions where it was not my finest hour as a parent, but yeah, that was back then, wasn't it?
There's so much to navigate, isn't there? But that is why. So you mentioned your book. We've got it here, actually. Left to Their Own Devices. Here we go. Confident Parenting in a Digital World. And so this is the 4th edition. So you always update this book, don't you, with new kind of things. So you've got things on AI and gaming.
Yes, new chapter on AI, and there's stuff on gaming. We just brought it out about a month ago, 4th edition, and all the references are up to date. The research is up to date. Yeah, because everything is changing so quickly, that we felt we needed to just be on the front foot.
Yeah, and I've not finished it, but I have been reading it. And my sister was like, "Please, can I read that?" Her kids are a little bit older than mine, so I'm like, "I'll pass it on to you after I finished." But I think it's so good because it's so practical, and it does help things feel less scary. And I think as well, the thing that I love about it is you've written from the perspective of so many different family structures. It's not just with one like family type in mind. You've got advice for foster parents, for people who are co-parenting, single parents, like so many different grandparents. Yeah, like all types of family structures. And I just think it's so important because it makes you realize that this is a responsibility for all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love it. But for me, I guess I'm reading it from the perspective of I've got 2 really young children who don't have any access to a smartphone or the internet or anything like that. They're 2 and 5. But I guess as I read it, I think about kind of that there's a lot of shame that comes for children with what they can be exposed to and what they can see or engage with online. And I think I'm like, how do I begin at this point by creating a culture in my home that is like shame-free, so that my kids know they can come to me at any point in the future. So do you have any thoughts or wisdom for that?
Such a good question. And I mean, you're right to say from the earliest days as well. So I will come to the shame thing in just a second, but my daughter and her husband, they farm. So they're on an organic farm. So by any stretch of the imagination, it's low tech. They don't have, the children don't have phones or anything like that. And then a while ago, Tabitha's 3 and she'd done something naughty. So she was sitting on the thinking step. You used to be called the naughty step. Now it's a thinking step. And Charlotte that's my daughter, gave her phone because she had to sit there for 3 minutes because she's 3. And it had a little dial to show her how long 3 minutes was. And so she puts her there with that and said, it will seem a long time, but when that little hand gets round, that's your time up. So it was all good. Anyway, my husband's a lawyer and he's in his office in Bristol, so quite a long way away. And he's surprised to see Charlotte phoning. So she picks up his phone and says, hello, nice to hear from you. And he says, oh no, hi, Grandpa. And little Tabitha, age 3, who has never, they're not techie at all, but even then she knew how to use the phone. And I don't know how she'd done it, maybe seen his photo, but managed to phone her grandpa, catching up on a few calls.
That is so funny.
Anyway.
Oh my God.
But so I think it's little ones as well. So it's something like 27% of under 5s own a smartphone. So what? I know 68% have got a tablet. So it's not just the teenagers. So you're so right, Emma, to say start off when they're early. And this culture in our home, we as parents, we set the values that we live by in the home. So I like to say we're not the thermometer. We don't just measure what's going on. We're the thermostat. We can change the culture in the home. And to have a culture where our children know that they're loved, that they're accepted, which is bigger almost, I think, than love, so they know they can come to us when they've messed up, that there will definitely be boundaries in place, that there'll be consequences. But for our children, we would always say, if you're truthful about what's happened, that's a better deal for you than if you lie about what's happened, as well as the thing, then there's much bigger consequences to that. We had 3 things. It all began with the letter D that we used to say were like a little triangle almost, and they could do anything they wanted within that. And it was disrespect, so disobedience and dishonesty. And so disrespect, they needed to be respectful to people when they spoke to them. They needed to be respectful of people's possessions. And then dishonesty, telling the truth. And disobedience, doing what they're told. And so, and honestly, those were a really good framework for us, for our family. But I think out of all these, it's working out what is your unique family and your values that you want to see in your home. They'll be different for everyone, but I would say, the basis, looking to how God parents us, and that incredible unconditional love and acceptance. And if we can have a home where that is the baseline, and we'll get it wrong, of course we will, because life's hard, family life's hard, but knowing that they can come back, I think that's the kind of building block then for a shame-free home.
Because it was like in my head, I feel like it would be nice to be able to sit down as a family with my kids and be like, so these are the values of our home. This is what you do and you don't do. But it doesn't really work like that, does it? It's kind of, you don't get to sit down and like, or maybe you do, draw the triangle and say you can do anything within these boundaries. But it's that day to day remembering the values and just trying to like gradually get them into conversations, or when they do something wrong, it's almost like the responsibility on you to remember what the value is that you're trying to instill.
Oh, right. It's so right. I think, we ask them to pick up their coat and hang it up, and we come in the house and it is yet again on the floor. And we think, I just don't listen to us, but they don't miss a thing. And the way that we live, the values that we live by, will be the things that are caught more than taught. And I think it's great to have conversations sometimes about, these are our values, but it's living it, So just over the little things, obviously the things of faith, but also do we care about the environment? How do we spend our money? What's our attitude to people who are more vulnerable or poor, or, whatever the things are, if we're living them in the home. And that whole thing about boundaries and keeping consistent boundaries but showing love and acceptance in them. So, it's fine to write them down and put them on the fridge, but it's how we live.
Yeah, because sometimes you can think, okay, I'm going to address that part of our family values when we get there, but actually it's kind of setting the example from before. So even thinking about phones, I was speaking to my best friend about it the other day, and because I'm on my phone a lot, which is really bad, and so my kids will often be like, Mom, get off your phone. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's so hard to not just be on your phone. So she's created a phone box. So I copied her and I've done the same thing. And she was like, you should tell, Ezra, because Hallie's a bit young, but ask him to put your phone in the box for you. So be like, when we get into the house, just be like, can you go and put Mummy's phone in the phone box, so that he knows that when you come into the home, you're not just on a phone. And he'll grow up, hopefully, with that principle that when he becomes a teenager, he might walk into the home and be like, I'm going to put my phone in the box, just because that's what he's grown up with. That's the hope anyway.
So good. No, I love that, because if we're on our phone when we're collecting them from school, if the first thing we do when we come in the house is check our social media feed or our emails or whatever, they'll see that. So I love that about the phone box. But I think actually phones are part of life, and we do need them, and they are good. But if you've got your phone, not you, but somebody has their phone up, and our children only see the back of the phone. So they don't know if we're fixing a play date, if they're looking a recipe for their food, if we're scrolling through pictures of cats, they don't know. So I love that with the phone box. Another one, one of our children, who's a parent, has got just a little stand, and their phone lives there. And then if they use it, they make sure they stand next to it, which is it's not in a very convenient place. So they're not just, on it while they're waiting for make the coffee or whatever.
That's good, because then it makes it a bit more like a house phone, like what we used to have, where it's attached to the wall or whatever.
And that is the thing, isn't it? That, the phones used to be a tool to make a call. They were something that was attached to the wall with a curly cord. And now they're things that are shaping our lives and forming us, actually. So I totally,
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Another Mother. Now, if you are looking for a transformative experience that deepens your faith, look no further than Spring Harvest 2026. So join us at Butlins, Skegness or Minehead next April, and immerse yourself in inspiring teachings, heartfelt worship, and a community united in faith. Now, as a special gift for our Another Mother listeners, we have got an exclusive discount for you. So we'll pop the details of that in the description below this episode. But head over to springharvest.org, secure your place today, and don't miss out on this opportunity to join thousands of families as we come together in worship. I can't wait to see you here next year. Talking about setting the tone from early on with our families, I guess there's certain things that I think about that I know are conversations that I want to have with my children, but then I also know that you can't have them too prematurely. So things like, I guess, pornography, serious things that that your children are going to be exposed to, wanting to almost have the conversation with them first before they ever see anything or get spoken to about it by their friends or someone else, but then not wanting to do it too early, that you're then exposing them to something that they're maybe not cognitively ready for. So how do you know when the time is right to start having those conversations?
Such a good question. I mean, porn is rife, and the average age that somebody comes across porn is generally thought to be 13, and they're usually not looking for it. It's just they're on a device that hasn't got the right protections in place, or more usually they're in someone else's home and they've got different values. So I would say, number one, so important to have those conversations. I would say, you know your child best, you love them the most. And for some, it's not going to be, you must have this conversation at 7 or something, because there'll be different levels of maturity, different contexts that they are maybe at school in or whatever. So I would say start with God's best for relationships and talk about what committed, intimate, trustworthy, faithful relationships, which is God's best, What does that look like? So start with that, and then as appropriate. And I think most parents do know, but probably we need to be, I would say most parents go or a bit on the back foot because it's such an awkward conversation to have. It really
and then
is.
you're like, you don't even necessarily have the words. Like, you're like, how do I say this? I don't know.
But I would say mostly our children probably know more than we think. I mean, not at the little age that yours are. And I think you could find out with schools as well, because many schools will be having some kind of program, whether it's PHSC or whatever it is. They'll be talking about it at school as well. And you want to be ahead of the game with that, and to have it framed within your values, I think. You can ask questions, be curious. Find out what their friends are talking about, and then just, and I would say little by little, not the kind of, big talk. So if we're driving along in the car, and you might see, I don't know, a poster or something that actually would be a bridge to that kind of conversation. Do you think people really look like that or whatever? And some of those tangential ways.
Yeah. Okay. So you would technically kind of not draw their attention to things, but just be aware that they're probably noticing it if you are.
Yes.
And so if you see a poster of someone saying, would you say, what do you think about that? No. Would you say that?
I don't know. Depends on the child. I do remember one occasion saying, do you think people really look like that? It was so digitally enhanced. And that can be a bridge in. I think as our children's parents, we do know them best. And so knowing where they're at, and just being a little bit curious, but not pushing it when clearly they're not ready for it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But like you kind of with the book, it's always developing and it's always changing. And we just have to be aware, don't we? And just understand what is going on in society, and taking our role as parents really seriously, that it's not just about getting them dressed and fed and to bed on time. It's so much more than that.
It's a lovely little verse, right, tucked in the Old Testament. And so Ezra is writing in the book of Chronicles, and he's listing the people that came to fight for King David. And he talks about the men of Issachar, and he says they knew the times and they knew what to do. And that's what we need. And we do need to know the times. We do need to know what kind of things they're looking at, they're being exposed to or whatever, but then to know how to put good boundaries in place. I mean, I would say, talk to other parents as well, and the parents of your child's friends, because as they get older, they'll together, you'll be able to work out just what's being said where and what they're being exposed to.
Yeah, and I guess not being too afraid, because sometimes we can approach things with almost like a negative mindset, like the internet is the enemy, the smartphone is the enemy. But there's I guess some positives as well. And I guess as we look at things about the future of AI, do you feel like there are positives with that as well as negatives? What do you feel like we're looking at there with those kind of developments?
Oh, well, I think there are so many positives. I really do. And we don't want to parent out of fear. There's a Netflix series that a lot of people are watching called Adolescence, and that has caused a lot of fear. And obviously we want to have our eyes open to the issues, but we don't need to be fearful. We can really be confident, and there's so much hope. And I would say with technology, we can use it positively in the context of family life. So there was one dad, and he said that they often wanted to go out for a walk at the weekend. And he would say to his boys, can you put your coats on, put your phones away, we're going out for a walk. And it'd be, we don't want to go. And then he changed tack, and he now says, put on your coats and pick up your phones, and we're going out for a walk. And they take photos, they make little videos, and they use the phones just to build family fun time together. And maybe Minecraft or Roblox aren't your favorite way of spending a Saturday evening, but just being interested in their games. Another family we know use AI, and they say, tell us a story about when mummy's ice cream was eaten by a seagull or something. And that's quite a fun thing. So they're not all bad, but they are powerful. And I think so it's putting the right boundaries in place, but making the most as well. And AI is that's at the forefront now, really. I think that's a great opportunity to encourage our children to develop that skill of critical thinking.
Yeah.
So being able to think, well, where's this information from? And is it from a source that we know and we trust? Is it aligned with our values? So they're not just taking everything at face value.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be cynical, but we don't want them to be naive either.
I love that kind of idea of like what your friend does in terms of saying, pick up your phones, in that it's not making it this distant, separate thing that it's like, oh, like not the phones again. Because then kids just end up being like, oh, you just hate phones, you don't understand it. Whereas it's like embracing it and modeling how we can use it well. And it's similar with AI. And it's like, we're going to have to learn how to set boundaries with it. I'm a youth worker as well. I'm like astounded at how much the youth use AI to the homework. I'm like, guys, you shouldn't be doing that, because there's, you're just not like, I'm like, what are you going to do when you get to an exam? You're not going to have like ChatGPT there to just like ask the questions, but that's what they do for their homework. So it's like how we can, I guess, coach our children through and set boundaries with like, how do we use these things and how can we accept the things that the world develops and creates, but in a way that's not going to obstruct our own learning. And
AI, it will generate content and not just curate, but actually there's a lot of independent thought and creativity that AI will never ever replicate.
Yeah.
So I think schools are having policies now on that. I mean, one of the top tips I would say for any family would be to have something called a family media agreement. And all that means is you get together, and it might be little ones, it might be teenagers, and even the most uncommunicative teenager will take part if they think they're going to be listened to. And you make it a fun thing. You have some drinks, some snacks, and you agree your boundaries for technology in the home, and everybody signs up, even the parents.
Oh, really? Okay.
So things like, do you have phones at the meal table? Would you have phones in the bedroom? That would be my, I think, absolute top thing would be, if possible. It's hard if it's already happening and they're teenagers, that's hard. But if they're little, keep the phones out of the bedroom. They don't need these things going. Like some children are setting alarms. You may have seen this with the youth, but setting alarms during the night so they can check their social media feed. So they're not getting enough sleep. Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
But you can put that in. But what to do if they come across something scary, what the consequences are when that. But if you agree it together, and you don't have to write it all out. It's just talking about it, and it's not a straitjacket. It's not restricting their freedom, but it is actually like a seatbelt, really, keeping them safe. And ultimately, we want to be giving them wisdom so they can make those good choices. But that's a good platform for that.
And then what kind of consequences would you do? Because if the parents have also got to sign the agreement, what are some good consequences for the whole family?
Yeah, so I think that has to be appropriate. So you may have got children of different ages. So you may have a 6-year-old and a 16-year-old. So clearly it's going to be very different. Some people have 3 columns. So yes, you can ask us first. Don't even think about it.
That's good.
But, if there's a phone at the meal table and that was one of your values, you say, so maybe that phone then has to be taken away for a particular time. Or I think just trying to make the consequence fit whatever it is, which is slightly easier with technology, sometimes harder with other rules in the home, but trying to make them fit as appropriate. And I think that's quite fun with the parents as to how that works.
Yeah, I can imagine the kids would love like the idea of telling their parents, they'll be like, you've got your phone at the dinner table, you're banned for 10 minutes.
Well, a friend of mine the other day, exactly that happened. And he said, but I'm busy. I've got an important work thing. And I think,
yeah. And that's the thing as well, isn't it? As parents, we often think what we're doing is so important, when actually for your kids, like playing a game or doing that is equally as important in their minds. And it's, about how like, even if we think something's important, if it's a boundary and it's a value that we have as a family, that's the priority.
So there was, when we were making one of our parenting courses at Care for the Family, we interviewed a dad, and he said that he was really busy, had a lot going on at work. Saturday morning, he was catching up on his phone on some work stuff. And his 8-year-old came in and said, Daddy, can we go and play football? And he said, in a minute. I went off, and he came back a few minutes later. Daddy, Daddy, please, can we go play football? He said, yes, in a minute. I'm just doing this. Went off, came back again. And he said again, Daddy, I thought you said we could play football. And he said he was really irritated because he was trying to get this done. He said, can't you see I'm busy? And this little boy just walked off. But just as he got to the door, he looked back at his dad and he said, you're a much nicer daddy without your phone.
Don't.
I know. And he said that was such a moment for him of realizing that he actually needed to make a few changes. But life's busy, and particularly if you're parenting on your own, it's hard.
Yeah.
We've got to use technology. But I would say, let's think what we're using it for. We might look back and think, there's a phrase in parenting, the days are long, but the years are short. And we might look back and think, what was so important about, chasing my Amazon parcel or whatever.
Yeah.
And use our phones when we have to, but when we can, just like you say, give 100%, try and give 100% attention to them, because it gives such a sense of value, doesn't it? And nurture and love and acceptance, all those things.
Yeah, I sometimes view it like as if, like when I'm on my phone, as if it was another person in the house, and how like, would I constantly have people in the house that I'm then just ignoring my kids? Like, or would I pause my conversation to respond to my kids? Of course I would. Like, I wouldn't, I feel like the person would be judging me if they just saw that I was constantly just ignoring my kids to carry on the conversation. They'd be like, no, go and like see to your children. It's fine. So yeah, I think it's like we've got to focus on what is the most important, and think of that bigger picture as well. But you touched on the thing about schools potentially putting in some sort of, I don't know, restrictions on phone usage. A lot of them have done it already. I know that, I think it was Keir Starmer recently said that there wouldn't be like a ban particularly, but then I saw this campaign. I don't know if you've seen about it, the Smartphone Free Childhood. Yes, I follow them on social media, just kind of seeing how the campaign is developing. And basically, for those that don't know, it's a campaign where parents can sign up to agree that they're not going to give their child a smartphone. I think it's before the age of 14 or before the age of 15. Yeah. Because they're kind of saying that if we could create a new cultural norm, then that actually maybe has more capacity for change than actually a law change. So making it almost like the same way you wouldn't give your child like a can of beer, I don't know. And if someone saw that, they'd be like, oh, that's weird. Like, why has that parent done that? The same way they want to make it so it's like if a parent gives their child a smartphone at the age of 11 or whatever, that the social norm is like, oh, that's a bit strange. Why have you done that? And thousands of people have signed up already. But do you feel like these kinds of, I don't know, social community agreements would actually work? Or I don't know.
I think that where they do work, so you're so right, the Smartphone Free Childhood movement, and it was these two mums, and they both decided they weren't going to give their child a phone when they went to secondary school. They had a little WhatsApp group and they posted, nothing happened. And then it went on Instagram and it went viral.
Yeah.
And I think it was just tapping into a lot of parents' fear that they didn't want their children to have, well, it's basically a mini computer in their pockets, but equally everyone else had them. So you don't want your child to be the only one not. So I would say the power of it is agreeing with other parents. And I think, it's, I think each family knows the kind of age that is right for them. And we want to be giving our children wisdom to manage these things well. But I would say if there is, the power is in agreeing with others. And so, if there's a sleepover, do you agree that you won't have smartphones in the bedroom? Do you agree when to get the first phone? And it doesn't need to be a smartphone. There's so many other phones now, wise phones, dumb phones. If they need to phone to say they're on the bus on the way home from school, it doesn't have to be a smartphone. It doesn't need social internet access. So I think grassroots movements like this are really powerful. And I think that's really big.
Do you know what the significance is with the age of 14, like in terms of why it's important that it's not until later?
There's a book by a sociologist called Jonathan Haidt called The Anxious Generation. And he recommends 14 and then 16. I think it's partly to do with the brain development. Yeah, we used to think that all brain development took place when they were little, but it's in puberty that there's like this rewiring upgrade, and different parts of the brain develop at different rates, which is the bad news. The good news is that it's developing. And the last bit is this bit at the front called the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that helps you make sensible long-term decisions and weigh risk and deferred gratification. And it's simply not yet there. So they are thinking with a different part of the brain, which is the seat of the emotions. So they're literally thinking with their feelings, which is why, this is such a powerful, you combine that with the algorithms, with the attention economy, which is the fact that tech companies are paying billions of pounds to get our attention. So it's just not a level playing field. So I don't know exactly why 14 was chosen, but those are the factors that I think.
Yeah.
But I would say, your child best. And, some children will have additional need. There'll be different factors. But we know them best. But delay as long as possible the smartphone.
That's so interesting, because I've read about other people also doing like agreements with their school or just in their friendship groups. And I think that is quite a nice way to look at it, like how you could be bold enough to maybe suggest to your child's class, like, hey, do you mind if we all agree? And they might just roll their eyes at you and say, absolutely not. But
I think more schools are banning them, or at least having a policy of sort of hear it, see it, i.e. if they see it or hear it in the school day, it gets confiscated. And they're going to have a better time if they're playing with each other or chatting with each other in the break times rather than all being individual on their phone.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the issues are caused like outside of school as well, aren't they? Where things kind of carry on at the end of the school day online or something on Snapchat or whatever. And then it gets brought into school, even if they're not physically on their phones in school. So yeah, that's where it's like the duty of parents kind of comes in to make these agreements.
So bullying is, it's massive online. And in my day, the school bully generally stayed in the school playground at the end of the school day. But
the break, okay.
Yeah, but now through the smartphone, the bully is with them on the bus as they eat their evening meal, as they do their homework, and as the phone just pings under the duvet at night, it's 24/7, so it's a lot harder.
Yeah. So as we close, do you have any encouragement for parents who may be thinking they're maybe a bit fearful or just feel like there's too much information out there, they don't really know what to do? Where would you begin?
So I would say get informed, find out, about the issues, be interested, be curious, but most of all know that you love them best, you love them the most. And, if we are people that pray, we can pray, and we have a God who loves our children even more than we do. And the ultimate thing we want to and can give them is wisdom. And that's not just, on this area of digital, but in all the areas of family life. There's a lovely proverb that says, don't forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. And we can be modeling that to our children, helping them take appropriate risks, helping them have time away from their phones. But honestly, we have everything to play for, and we really, really are the biggest influence on their lives. That's how God has ordained it. And he's given us that incredible privilege and responsibility. And of course it's tough, but actually we really do have everything to play for.
Yes. Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for writing this book. If anybody has not read it yet, you definitely should get this, because it covers so much ground. And I think it does give a really clear, practical guidance. And yeah, it helps you feel more confident just by getting informed. So yeah, thank you so much, Katharine. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Katharine Hill. It was so informative, and don't forget to get this book if you're interested in finding out a bit more about parenting in the digital age, just getting your information and feeling really confident about this. And just know that you as parents have everything that you need. You've got God that's going to help you and a community around you. So yeah, chat to your friends about it, share this episode with your friends, and get the conversation started. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time.